Should there be more planes coming in and out of Farnborough? For the last couple of weeks, people have been asked their views on the future of the airport, and there's been 6 drop-in events and also a consultation over plans to increase flights by 40%. But that all comes to an end today. This is what people in the town have been telling BBC Radio Surrey.
Well, I'd be quite happy because I do a lot of driving at Farnborough Airport, so it'd mean more business.
A good thing, but, noise factor, not too good,
I wouldn't mind it, more jobs for the area. The place is a bit run down.
I'm not sure about that because they are pretty, regular. There's quite a lot go over all the time, so I don't think he would like it increased, no.
Well, bosses at Farnborough want the annual flight limit to go up from 50,000 to 70,000 a year by 2040. They say it's to secure the airport's economic prosperity. Climate campaigners have raised concerns about the impact on pollution and noise. BBC Radio Surrey's political reporter Jack Feen has been finding out how people living near to the airport are feeling.
That's a plane flying over the village of Mytchett in Surrey, which isn't far from Farnborough. And I think what's interesting is that a lot of the reaction to the proposals to expand the number of flights is actually coming from Surrey, from Waverley and Surrey Heath and the surrounding areas. The local MPs have been commenting about the plans and flagging up the consultation so that people can take part. Here in Mytchett, this is the Surrey Heath constituency, so this is Michael Gove, the Levelling Up Secretary's area. On Facebook, he said that he understands the business case for expansion of the airport and says he recognises that would be valuable for the local economy. But he's also said that he's worried about the increase in pollution and also the loss of quality of life, peace and amenity for his constituents who live under the flight path and therefore feel that expansion of the airport would be wrong. Meanwhile, the Chancellor and South West Surrey MP Jeremy Hunt has said that he's very concerned about the impact on residents in Farnham and Ash and questioned whether Farnborough really needs to double flights over the weekend and over a longer time window. He's also expressed concern that there seems to be no compromise on the table and says he would like to know what the total proposed increase in noise is for residents. But what do people who live around the airport make of what they're proposing?
I don't oppose things just for the sake of it. And I'm all in favour of progress. If you asked me for an opinion, I'd say, yes, I'd want it to go ahead.
So you'd be quite happy for there to be more flights coming out of Farnborough Airport?
It doesn't bother me at all. Aircraft are getting quieter, very noticeably so, and I'm happy for it to go ahead.
It's not too bad. Yeah. You're aware of them, particularly in the summer if you're outside.
Yeah.
But over the years, they get quieter, and it's not due for quite a few years yet, is it?
You get used to them. You notice sort of early evening and perhaps in the morning, but they're not there all day.
And if there were more of them, if they went from, say, 50,000 a year to 70,000 a year, what would you make of that?
I think that might be getting a bit too much then, I think.
Just over a mile away in Frimley Green, there's a similar mood.
We see them going over, but it doesn't really make too much difference to us from where we live.
And if there were more, would you be bothered, or what would you think?
Not really. We're just that little bit sort of far enough away, I think.
In Farnborough, not far from the airport itself, this woman I spoke to wasn't so happy about the idea.
I think it's probably inevitable that it's going to happen, and I wish it wasn't, because I don't think at weekends it's necessary to start at 7 o'clock really and go on till 10. The noise is very intermittent, I know, and at the moment doesn't bother us at all really. If you'd moved to Farnborough, then there's an airport, and from that angle we're not complaining about it. After COVID, when everything closed down and there was nothing, we all thought, oh goodness, this is a good thing. But everything is just getting worse and worse now again, isn't it?
It's expected that Farnborough Airport will submit a formal application to expand the number of flights over the next few weeks. There'll be plenty of opportunities for people across the area to have their say.
That's Jack Feen reporting. Let's bring in Simon Greere, who's the CEO of Farnborough Airport. Morning to you, Simon. Now, remind us, why do you feel this is necessary, and why do you want to increase the number of flights?
Yeah, well, look, airports are asset-intensive, investment-heavy businesses, and we need long-term visibility on growth. And when we look at the market demand for flights from Farnborough, cast that by 2040, the market demand will be around about 70,000 flights per annum. And as you've rightly pointed out in that feature, we currently have a limit of 50,000. So this is really a question of, if we want to seize that economic opportunity, and it's not just about the airport business, it's also about the region as well. And if we want to do that, then it was right that we went out and consulted with the public and sought views and feedback as to how they saw the role of Farnborough Airport going forward.
Now, you're allowed to have 50,000 flights a year at the moment. Last year, you handled 32,000 flights. Are you sure the demand will actually be there for 70,000 flights?
Yeah, so look, 70,000 flights would equate to about 4% growth per annum from where we are today. And that's not too dissimilar from what's happened historically. And there's a very direct correlation between business aviation, traffic growth and UK GDP. And whilst short term, obviously, we can all see the bumps in the road for the UK economy. Long term, assuming that GDP, averages out at around 2%, you'd expect that business aviation and that 20,000 flights.
All right, your line's just dropping out a bit. We will stick with it for the moment. If not, I'm going to have to. We'll have to dial you back very quickly. But you've met with MPs like Michael Gove and Jeremy Hunt, who've raised concerns about your plans. And Mr. Hunt said he wanted to see a compromise. Would you look at that?
Yeah, so we've obviously taken feedback from MPs, and
I tell you what, we're going to have to dial you back very quickly, and we'll get you back on the line because we need to hear what you've actually got to say. Interested to hear your thoughts on Farnborough. If you live in the area, how do you feel about possible expansion, maybe a bit further away? Because I live in Woking, see the flights actually coming over the house pretty quickly. Particularly on a Sunday afternoon, you can actually gauge them. Your thoughts, please, are welcome. 08000 321 333. We'll start your message with the word radio, please. Do get in touch also on email, surreybreakfast@bbc.co.uk. Now, with a bit of luck, Simon, we got you back, I think, on the regular dog and bone now. But I was just asking about Michael Gove and Jeremy Hunt, who've raised their concerns. And Jeremy Hunt saying he wanted to see a compromise. Would you look at that?
Yeah, so look, we've met with a number of MPs and councillors, and we've received a wide range of feedback. I mean, I think there are things we can do to address people's concerns. Now, we can't directly say, well, okay, let's reduce the forecast numbers down to an artificial number, because ultimately the market demand is what it is. But we are looking at a number of measures, including further noise insulation grants that we could look at, and also potentially seeing how we can give people comfort that we're not going to double flights overnight. Because to be honest, this isn't going to happen tomorrow. No, this is a long-term projection, and I think a lot of people are worried that this is just a step towards sort of an immediate sort of significant increase at the weekends or across the year.
One of the we've just asked people to get in contact. Paul's in South Croydon and has sent me this. He says, "Morning, James. I heard somewhere," and he says it may be from yourselves, I don't know if it was, but anyway, that a high proportion of flights into Farnborough are empty Learjets being flown in from their berthing airfields. Could Farnborough not offer better berthing facilities for cheaper berthing to reduce the actual number of flights? Is there any truth in that?
Well, I'm not sure what berthing facilities are, but we do have a number of flights that will come in empty. We have Gulfstream's maintenance operation based at the airport, and obviously, aircraft will come in for maintenance. And indeed, there's no denying the nature of business aviation means there are a number of positioning flights that come in to pick up passengers to take them to where they need to go. And I think empty positioning flights is something that we could work on, in terms of how could we fill those empty legs going forward and make the whole system a bit more efficient. And that's something that we're looking at.
We spoke to Jules Crosley, who's a Labour councillor for Aldershot Park, and she's told us that lots of people are worried about the plans for weekend flights. This is what she's had to say.
At the moment, weekends and bank holiday flights are limited to 8,900 a year, and we're looking at almost doubling that to 18,900 a year. And if you extrapolate those figures over the period in which they're allowed to fly, and Farnborough do fly at night, they fly up to 10 p.m, and at weekends up to 8 p.m. at the moment. And if this goes through, they'll be flying 1 hour earlier in the morning at weekends and bank holidays, so from 7 o'clock instead of 8, and then they'll be going on flying until 9 o'clock in the evening instead of 8, and working out, the worst case scenario with the maximum number of flights at weekend, that could be up to 13 on average an hour. That's, a flight more than every 5 minutes.
Now, I do take on board that you said this isn't all going to happen overnight, but what do you make of that?
Yeah, look, I think the limit we have at the weekends was set many years ago when there was this sort of idea that business travel only ever happened on a Monday to Friday. And as we know, as time's progressed, working patterns have very much changed, enabled by technology. And, we now have a 7-day-a-week business. And so it's not as though we're asking to handle more traffic at the weekend than we would during a normal weekday. All we're saying is we want the weekends to grow at the same rate. And even if they do, there'll still be a lower proportion of the 7-day week than what you would have if you actually the same number of flights went through on a Saturday and Sunday versus a Monday to Friday. So I take the point, but all we're saying is, we'd like the week and the weekend to grow at the forecast rate of 4%, and it's not going to happen overnight. And I think perceptually the noise levels that people might experience, I just don't think it's going to be that material.
Interesting that there are targets for net zero emissions, particularly for planes and aviation, and a lot of Farnborough's business comes from private jets. Do you think there could be government restrictions over the next few years which actually might make these plans a bit more difficult?
Well, it's obviously a question for government and regulators, but the role of business aviation in driving inward investment and supporting UK PLC is absolutely demonstrable. And I think the government will recognise that, and indeed meeting with Michael Gove and Jeremy Hunt, they absolutely get that. So it's really a question of a balance, isn't it, between that economic benefit that business aviation brings to the UK and brings to regions versus the environmental impact. But I must say, from an environmental perspective, this is a sector that can actually be a catalyst for environmental change within the wider aviation industry, and in particular the use of sustainable aviation fuels. We've been supplying that at Farnborough since 2021. We're the biggest single-site seller of sustainable aviation fuel to the business aviation community in the UK, and we recently sold our 1 millionth litre of sustainable aviation fuel. So we really can get some traction behind the take-up of sustainable aviation fuel going forward.
Interesting. So we've still got time today to actually get our tuppence worth in on this, have we?
Yes, and we encourage everybody to do that. We've had really great engagement from all our communities. It's really good to get the feedback. That's what this process was all about. We'll spend some time thinking about what we've heard. We'll collate it, and then we'll look to try and include some of that in the application we're aiming to make in early November.
Good talking to you. Where's the nice? Well, have you actually flown on a private jet out of your own airport?
No, I haven't. No.
Really?
On the bucket list.
Yeah, it's on all of our bucket lists, I know. That's the CEO of Farnborough Airport, Simon Greere.